MOTROLIX.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Chevy Society podcast, the show where we discuss all things about the Bowtie brand. On the show today, the 2025 C8 ZR1. I'm your host, G, and joining us is none other than GM Authority Executive Editor, Alex Luft.
Hey, that's me. I'm Alex Luft.
Hello, Alex.
How's it going, G?
Doing good, man. Doing good. So, you got some exciting stuff to do last week.
I did. After being stuck in Detroit for 3 days because of the CrowdStrike F-up and vis-a-vis airlines and Delta and all that. After getting stuck there, I went straight to Miami with my Miami tan, which I already had. And I got to see the C8 ZR1. So, yeah, I did some fun stuff.
Okay, so you said you just got to see it, but did you get to touch it?
I got to touch it. I got to sit in it.
Ooh.
Didn't get to drive it.
It is coming. Eventually.
Next time.
It's gonna happen.
Soon.
It's gonna happen. Fantastic. Yeah. So tell us about that.
So here's the thing. If we want to do this car justice, this is going to be a long show. But I'm going to do my best to condense it. Okay. But just keep in mind that this could end up, getting out of control from a length standpoint, because there's a lot to unpack here. This is awesome. So yes, first and foremost, the reveal was awesome. It was they did it at the Miami Concourse Club. The entire presentation was just, off the charts. They had the coupe, which was driven by GM President Mark Royce. He was doing some hot laps around the track. They were piping in the video feed from that car live onto the screen. So you heard it, like as Scott Bell, who was the global chief of Chevy, he was essentially doing the presentation, telling everyone about, how we got here. And in the background, you hear, you're like, what? And then like 5 seconds later, you're like, this can't be like a coincidence. Someone's doing hot laps somewhere. And then you're like, oh, there's a yellow C8 ZR1 out there. Someone's driving it. And then they start showing the in-vehicle, So if anyone wants to see this in full, the full 20 minutes, you can just find it on our channel, youtube.com/MOTROLIX, or actually that's the best way to get there, because we didn't put that under Chevy Society. That's just the general MOTROLIX video. So yeah. So that was, and then the way that that Mark pulled onto the stage, it was just awesome. Like, bright yellow. The tires even squealed a bit as they crossed as he was braking. Right before he got onto the stage, he kind of crossed that little, drove over a little line, a painted line of sorts. And you heard the tires just, as he was slowing down. And I'm like, wow, he's coming in hot. Maybe but he, it was fine.
It's an exciting reveal.
It was exciting. Then they had some other folks as Mark and Taj Juchter, the executive chief engineer of the Corvette, as they were on stage. Then you started hearing some more, and you're like, what? Is someone else doing hot laps? Is this like another thing now, or are we still part of, And it turns out they had two of their Cal drivers out there as well, doing more hot laps. So it's like, it was just hot laps upon hot laps of goodness. That's all there was.
There's a lot of goodness to unpack.
A lot of goodness to unpack, yeah. And so the reveal was cool, and I guess we could start with how we got here. And how we got here was, the C8 as a whole, that was revealed, way back when. I think, I forgot exactly how long ago, but, that it launched for the 2020 model year. So the C8 Stingray, right, base model Corvette, very capable, much faster than the C7 Stingray, which in turn was much faster than the C6. At the end of the day, the C8 Stingray just made a huge jump, like a leap, over the C7 Stingray in performance and comfort and NVH, all that stuff. And that was just the start of the C8 story. So then you had the Z06, right, with the high revving flat plane crank V8 5.5 liter, essentially the naturally aspirated version of the LT7 that's in the ZR1, which we'll get to in a second. That was the Z06. And then you had the E-Ray, so wide body, just like the Z06, but now it combined essentially the Stingray's ICE powertrain, the LT2, plus a electric setup for the front wheels. And that resulted in the first ever hybrid Corvette, and also the first all-wheel drive Corvette as a result of that. And now the ZR1. So yes, King of the Hill. You know, I think it was with the C4 that it got that name. And yes, as was first reported by GMAuthority.com years ago. In fact, I think it was back in April of 2020. We had reported that the C8 ZR1 would be powered by a twin-turbo 5.5 liter V8 called the LT7. And it was the LT7. Yep. What we didn't get right is the power. All right, we thought the power would land in the 900s, maybe high 800s. 1,064 freaking horsepower at 7,000 RPM. 1,064 horsepower?
That puts a smile on my face, man. I wasn't there. I wish I would have been able. I went on a trip, but you had called me
1,064?
Just in case, if 900 wasn't enough.
It's sick. 828 pound-feet of torque at 6,000 RPM. And by the way, this isn't like Chevy pulling figures out of its derriere. No. These are like SAE industry standard guidelines for measuring, engine potency, right? That's what that is. So these figures actually, there's a chance that these might actually end up being a bit higher as the car, before it gets to production, because there might be some parameters that weren't, but it can only get better, is my point. So 1,064 horsepower. It's over 1,000 horsepower in a Chevrolet. There is no Cadillac that makes over 1,000 horsepower, right? The CT5V Blackwing supercharged 6.2 liter V8, not even close to 1,000 horsepower. This is how, like, we're talking higher north of the EV range. It depends on the EV, but yeah, I mean it's more powerful than anything that GM makes in the EV space right now, also. Because they have some pretty potent vehicles that are putting out some impressive numbers. The thing that comes to mind the most is the Hummer EV, right, which you yourself had. As you know, that's 1,000 horsepower and 11,500 pound-feet of torque at the crank. The Hummer is a beast. But this is a different kind of car, right? All that makes the C8 ZR1 the most powerful V8 ever produced in America from an actual automaker, not like a coach builder or like a specialty equipment producer of some kind, like, or a tuner. No, this is a, pump gas, 93, go out and drive it. 1,064 horsepower. And the other interesting thing about the LT7 is that it's based on the same general architecture. It's called the Gemini architecture, as the LT6 that's used in the C8 Z06, the most powerful naturally aspirated production V8 engine ever. But the LT7 takes that to the next level with twin turbos, which is another first for the Corvette. The Corvette's never been turbocharged in its life. Now the C8 ZR1 is the first time that we have a turbocharged Corvette. So it's based on the same general architecture, but it's not, the LT7 is not the same engine as the LT6. They have done a whole lot of other things here to really take the LT6 to the next level beyond just turbocharging. So for instance, the head castings have unique ports and a larger combustion chamber. Valve train timing and lift profiles have been optimized for forced induction. There's a completely new intake system tuned for twin turbo, CNC machine combustion chamber, exhaust, and intake ports specific to the LT7. There's intelligent anti-lag engine cal techniques specific to the ZR1. On top of all that, there is also added block and head machining to support turbo cooling and oiling. There's also counterweight changes to account for unique piston and unique connecting rod for the crank train, and a secondary port fuel injection system. Get this, a secondary port fuel injection. So it's dual injected. You have direct injection and you have port injection, and the LT7 gets both. And that's needed to deliver the additional fuel to support the massive output figures of the LT7. So just like the LT5 and the C7 ZR1 had dual injection, direct and port, same thing here. So very, very, very impressive engineering here. I should also note that the LT7 retains the LT6's flat plane crank, which is kind of interesting. I personally did not expect that. I thought that they would have switched back to a cross plane crank for the LT7 just because of the turbos. You don't really need to rev it that high, but they didn't, and they know best. Hand assembled still by master engine builders at the Performance Build Center in Bowling Green at the Corvette plant in Kentucky. And just to kind of put these figures into perspective, okay, so 1,064 horsepower. This means that the C8 ZR1 has more power than two LS7 engines. So, you take the C6 Z06 with its the LS7. It's a 7-liter LS7, right? 7-liter.
It's a huge engine.
Huge engine, and it was revered at the time that the C6 Z06 came out. It was like, holy crap! That was like all engine, no forced induction, no supercharging, all engine, just the right stuff, the stuff that GM at that point in time especially was really good at doing, because back then GM did not know how to do these kinds of engines, or maybe they did know how to do them, but they didn't want to. They didn't have the budget, perhaps. They didn't have the fund allocation, all that. Fine, but at the end of the day, now you have in one engine bank, you have an entire LS7. More than the entire LS7. Now you add another one, you got two. So you got two C6 Z06s in the C8 ZR1. And this is just a matter of what, like 12, 13, 14 years, I'm thinking, if I'm doing my math right. I mean, it's like roughly a decade and a half worth between the two, those models. Really a decade, ultimately. That's how far internal combustion engines are coming now, in light of EVs, in light of the movement towards battery electric and hybrid and all that stuff.
The thing is, that mindset, I would hear it all the time. There's no replacement for displacement, and bigger was better. And let's get as much we're gonna take over this, every square inch of this, we're gonna max it out. This is blown that way out of the water.
But I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Chevy was the king of that mantra.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably started at GM. There is no replacement for displacement. You're absolutely right. But looks like there is. And guess who is pioneering it? GM. Of all the automakers out there, right? Of all the brands, it's Chevy, the king of the Chevy small block, right? They are pioneering a dual overhead cam. So this is, ironically, they're calling it a small block because of the size of the block, but it has nothing to do with, the engines that you get right now that are other small block engines, the LS2, the L84, the L87, it has nothing in common with any of that. This is a dual overhead cam engine, totally different crank train, everything is different. But it's just ironic. It's ironic that the company that was all about displacement and some supercharging is now rocking with this kind of an engine.
This is impressive, man. This is really freaking impressive.
I mean, you want to talk about engineering? This is it right here. I mean, this will be in automotive history books for ages. It's this right here. Okay, let's talk about the transmission real quick. Still a dual clutch 8-speed transmission, but the big increase in power from the LT7 also meant that this tranny needed to have been fortified with inner and outer input shaft upgrades, increased gear capacity with strength increased via the shot peening for all gears. They did final drive refinements as well. There's oil management to support the C8 ZR1's increased longitudinal and lateral capabilities, and increased control valves to accommodate the higher required clutch clamp load for the engine. So it's torque. It's the torque. Actually, I spoke to Taj right after the reveal, and he said, yeah, we needed to beef up the transmission because the torque that this thing puts out is insane. It's insane, and it pulls and pulls and pulls, and it doesn't matter where you are on the rev band. It doesn't matter which speed you're going. You just, you step on it, it goes. So they needed to beef up the tranny for that. That makes sense. And I think that brings us to the exterior. So on the exterior, GMauthority.com also a few years ago was the first to report that the C8 ZR1 would in fact be offered in both coupe and hardtop convertible flavors. And that is the case. So coupe, meaning with a manually removable roof panel, and hardtop convertible, meaning hardtop convertible. There's the same front and rear fascias as on the Z06, complete with a center exhaust treatment. And there's not going to be an outboard exhaust treatment because the C8 ZR1, unlike the C8 Z06, it's not going to Europe. So they didn't have to do the entire exhaust emission stuff for Europe. They didn't have to do that. So center mounted, center exit exhaust through and through. And a thing that I found interesting that Chevy was explaining is that the Corvette team looked at every single component of the C8 ZR1 to ensure cooling and aero remained top of mind. And anything that went into the program, any kind of change, any kind of modification, it needed to contribute to the car's sole mission, which is performance. So one of the key things that sets the C8 ZR1 apart from all other C8 models unveiled thus far is that it brings back the split rear window, which is obviously an iconic design element that was last seen on the C2. But here's the thing. They hid this thing from us in plain sight. They hid it from us in plain freaking sight. And I don't know how I didn't notice it, because they put the split rear window onto the C8 Z06 GT3 R race car. And it's been there. It's been there for like a while now. And, nobody noticed it. Not a single soul noticed it, wrote about it, commented on it. It was just like, oh yeah, it's got a split rear window, big deal. So here's the cool thing about the split rear window. It's form and function, dual purpose existence. First, it provides the obvious design statement, right? Creating this kind of spine that Chevy designers call it. It creates a spine between the two rear windows, and it's available in either exposed carbon fiber weave or body color. And then don't let this thing trick you, because it's not just for show. It has an actual functional purpose, and that functional purpose is that it provides increased heat extraction from the engine bay, and it works hand in hand with several of the ZR1's cooling systems. So how cool is that? How cool is that? You have a thing that looks cooler, a component that looks cooler, and it actually helps as well. And I asked Taj just how much more effective it is than the non-split rear window at taking all the heat out of there. And he said it's about 50% more effective.
Wow.
50%, which I'm about. I don't think it was an exact number, but he said it's...
The numbers are high enough that it's very interesting that not only did they bring it back as that iconic look, they brought it back with great function.
Yes. Yeah, and they were very conscious about bringing it back. They didn't just want to bring it back for the sake of bringing it back. But of course, what's going to happen now is the aftermarket's going to be all over this, right? You're going to get C8 Stingrays with a split rear window. You're going to have, E-Rays. You're going to have Z06s. Everything under the sun is now going to have a split rear window.
The thing is, that was just such a beautiful, iconic look.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a cool Easter egg that they kind of dropped in and fooled
they
a bunch of people.
Nobody noticed it. Nobody. And I looked at myself when he told me that. I thought to myself, I should just walk away right now. I'm so embarrassed. How did I not notice this? I should just, disappear.
Tosh is a good guy, man.
He is a good guy. He is a good guy. And he's retiring this week, actually. So
nice. Good for him.
Yep.
Fantastic work.
I mean, talk about leaving on a high note, right? This is it right here.
This is legacy stuff.
Yeah. Some other changes to the C8 ZR1 compared to the Z06 include a carbon fiber roof that is obviously used to reduce mass and lower the center of gravity. This is the case for both the coupe and the hardtop convertible. So both will have a carbon fiber roof. There is also a unique aluminum wheel design available in 4 finishes, one of which is blue. They call it Edge Blue, kind of an homage of sorts to the ZR1's signature color cue. There is an optional new carbon fiber wheel design, which is exclusive to the ZR1, and that obviously further reduces mass. And then this is kind of cool. So we were talking about Edge Blue just now. The LT7 engine intake is finished in Edge Blue. So, you know, it looks as good as it performs. That's you know, a nice touch. It's a nice touch. It's not a black intake.
They take care of the little things.
They do. I mean, why not? Right? This is a special car. It has special levels of power. Don't just, you know, this is the thing that always pissed me off in the past about Chevy performance vehicles, is that they were just all thrown together. You know, like, I don't want to crap on it too much, right? But like the C6, the poor C6, what a great car. Handles great, has great engines, you know, looks good. Obviously that's objective, but then it has a steering wheel out of a Chevy Cobalt. You know, like how do you do that? Are the bean counters honestly that powerful? Yes, they are. Within GM at that point in time, they were. The company has now restructured itself to the point where that's less of a thing and perhaps less obvious. But at the end of the day, you know, the bean counters used to run GM, and they ran it into the ground, as we all know, in 2008, 2009. So now you have things like this. So they're not making crappy cars anymore. They're also not making really cool, fast cars with a lack of attention to detail, right? Because to me, it's like, what's the point? What's the point of making a really cool car, a really fast car, but then like you get in there and you're like, the AC vent's chintzy, and this thing sucks, and this thing doesn't, you know, like, what's the point of that? So might as well treat a special car in a special way, which is what they're doing here with little details like this one, which is cool. There's also a few things that for the 2025 model year, which is obviously the first model year of the C8 ZR1, a few things that it benefits from the overall Corvette vehicles. So, you know, Stingray, Z06, E-Ray. New exterior colors added to the range. So these will include Competition Yellow, which we saw at the reveal, Hysteria Purple, which we also saw on the reveal on the convertible. The yellow was on the coupe, and Sebring Orange as well. And then there's going to be a plethora of available full-length racing stripes and brake caliper colors, and one of which is going to be an exclusive blue for the calipers, so a ZR1 exclusive blue. So you can have blue accents all around for your ZR1, which is, you know, it's the color. Blue is the color for the ZR1. It's always been the color. It's, you know, the Blue Devil, all that stuff. All right, performance. Let's talk about performance. So here, the Corvette team tells us that the C8 ZR1 is all about this concept of sorts that it calls speed with ease. So on the suspension side, it's magnetic ride control, the latest iteration of magnetic ride control. Interestingly enough, they did not use DSSV suspension. So that I thought was very interesting. And I asked Taj, I said, you know, did you guys need to use or consider using DSSV? And essentially he said, no, you know, the dual spool dampers, which, you know, the Camaro ZL1 1LE famously uses. A few of the trucks use them as well right now, like the off-road oriented trucks. The ZR2, whether it's Colorado or Silverado 1500, same thing for the Canyon AT4X, same thing for the Sierra 1500 AT4X. All of these use DSSV dampers. And it all started with the Camaro ZL1 1LE, which was the trackiest of all Camaros, right? It's like the track car. And the reason given for using DSSV there versus magnetic ride control was that magnetic ride control was not doing what they needed the suspension to do. And I guess Team Corvette figured out what Team Camaro couldn't. because magnetic ride control is where it's at. DSSV is cool if all you do is you live on the track. I mean, anyone who's driven a Camaro ZL1 1LE would know. The thing is magnificent on the track. But the minute you take it off the track and drive it on a normal road that might be a little bumpy, you know, slight imperfections, you are gonna have to pay a visit to the chiropractor the following day. All right, that thing beats you up worse than the O'Doyle Rules kid in Billy Madison. All right, it just beats you up.
It's a little toxic of a relationship.
It is. It is. That's a sacrifice you have to make with DSSV. With magnetic ride control, you just turn the dial to comfort or tour or whatever the driving mode is called, and it's a docile, smooth, normal car. Right. That's the beauty of an adaptive suspension setup like magnetic ride control. Well, guess what? The C8 ZR1 has it. So they found a way to essentially make magnetic ride do whatever it is that they need the car to do, which is awesome. There's also a bunch of model-specific aero and cooling changes on the C8 ZR1 compared to lesser C8 models. So, for instance, the flow-through hood, air enters the front grille, flows through the intercooler heat exchanger, and then exits the hood to increase front downforce and also cool the charged air temperatures. But the trade-off there is that there is no frunk, right? There is no frunk. So the C8 Z06, there's a frunk. C8 Stingray, there is a frunk. C8 ZR1, no frunk.
Yeah, but they don't have 1,068 horsepower, so I'll sacrifice the frunk.
Yeah, excuse me. It's 1,064. Excuse me.
We're splitting hairs at that point, man.
You're 4 horsepower off. I'm going to be a horsepower snob. No. You're right.
Pardon me, sir.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But that's kind of the trade-off for the C8 as a whole. You know, I have a C7 Grand Sport. It's one of my daily drivers. It's the manual. It's configured in the right way. And I play hockey, as you know. And guess what? I can fit my hockey sticks into the back of the C7, into the trunk. They fit perfectly. There's a lot of room.
Sticks, man.
And my
sticks,
bag,
your bags, all your
everything.
stuff.
I can fit 2 pairs of hockey sticks, meaning 4 hockey sticks, and 2 bags. So if like you and I were gonna go out and play, we could take the Corvette.
My skates are ready, dude. I gotta get,
Yeah, you're almost there.
Pieces of gear.
I know you're almost there.
We'll go on the bed. It'll be great.
Yeah, we'll go on the vet.
That's it, man.
We'll take the top down, right?
That'd be badass, man.
Pull up to the rink.
Rock and roll, let our hair,
It starts raining.
Oh, that'd be great, man.
So in the C8,
Okay.
it's not. Don't even try to put your hockey bag in there. The only way that I found to put my hockey stuff into the C8 was I take it all out of the bag, put it into individually, all the equipment into the trunk, the rear trunk behind the engine compartment, right? And then I put the bag empty on top of it. But then what do I do with the sticks? Because the sticks won't fit there, right? So then I have to put the sticks into the cabin, which sucks, right? It sucks. And that's the only thing about the C8 that, I realize this is a
Unique.
fringe use case. Yeah, it's no one's doing this, right? I'm the kind of guy who carries his bike and his stand-up paddleboard and his surfboard on his on my C7 as well. But I know that I'm like the only one, right?
But you want to know if it can be done.
Yeah.
So you're like, look, I know it can.
You could do it. You could do it. You could empty it out, empty your crap out into the trunk and at the rear trunk, and you can make do without the frunk. That's the bottom line. I don't even like the frunk to begin with. All right. You know why? Because when you put something in the trunk, regardless of whether or not it's the frunk or the rear trunk, when you put something in there, you're always like wondering, shoot, which one did I put it into? Did I put it in the front? Did I put it in the rear? I don't know where I put it. I don't know where it is. And so now you have to check 2 trunks?
No, it's not convenient.
No.
No convenience there.
That's don't play the guessing game. Just have 1 trunk. But okay, whatever. So the ZR1, my point is that the ZR1 fixes that problem. You don't have to run around,
You got no options on this.
Take
the horsepower.
Where's my thing? It's in the back.
Yeah, just take your horsepower.
Exactly. I mean, are you going to be driving? You're going to be driving this thing to the country club to play golf. You could put your golf stuff in there. Yeah, it's fine. The bag, a couple of balls, some, I just can't. I can't not think of Caddyshack every time I think about this. The Bushwood Country Club. I just can't. Anyway, no frunk. There are carbon fiber side profile air ducts, which funnel clean, cool air. These are very cleanly integrated into the signature wishbone bezel. So that little design element on the doors that has kind of become known as the wishbone, they integrated an intake duct to cool the rear brakes, specifically for the rear brakes. And ironically, this is an intricately designed system that does not impact rear wheel travel. So you're not sacrificing comfort. You're not sacrificing any of that. The cool thing here is I asked Taj, I said, hey, these ducts, were they always, did you guys always plan this to be the case? He's like, yes. The backstory of the ducts is that wishbone design feature on the Z06, on the E-Ray, it's just there, right? It's just there. But guess what? They planned from the very beginning that very design feature will have an opening, a duct. And that's how they're going to use that wishbone design feature on the ZR1. Wow. And also on the Zora, I imagine, which is coming after this, which we'll talk about in a second. So very cool on that front. And then there's also another air intake duct, which essentially it's a carbon fiber inlet that's located at the top of the rear hatch, which ingests air to cool the turbo compressor inlet air temperatures. But note that this is only for the coupe. These vents are not on the convertible. And so I asked Taj again, what about the convertible? What's the impact there? And he said, well, you can take both the coupe and the convertible out to the track. You can run them both. But when things get hot, when things get extra warm, that is when you're going to want to stop running the convertible without these ducts. It will give you that one little tiny little run, right? It will give you that additional run on a hot summer day. And then you kind of get into the things of are you going to be running the convertible on a track in the first place? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But if you're living your life on the track, you're probably just going to get the coupe anyway, with all the proper stuff like the ZTK package, which I'll get to here in a second. So there are two unique setups that the C8 ZR1 will be offered in. The first, the standard one, is essentially it delivers a sleeker body with lower drag and a smaller spoiler, which actually features adjustable short and tall wickers. So this setup also includes a standard carbon fiber front splitter, rocker moldings, side intake with integrated brake cooling, which we discussed, the front underwing with stall gurney deflectors, and this setup runs on Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, 20-inch wheels in the front, 21-inch wheels in the rear. So this kind of standard chassis, it's the goal of it is to blend the best of on-road comfort and track capability. Now, the ZTK Performance Package is the second setup that the C8 ZR1 offers. And this thing, as Chevy puts it, it unlocks a true track weapon. So the ZTK package adds an aggressive high downforce rear wing, front dive planes, and a tall hood gurney lip, all of which are made from woven carbon fiber. And it also adds underbody strakes to replace the standard front underwing stall gurney. And that, of course, creates additional front downforce. Now, the ZTK package also includes unique suspension tuning that incorporates stiffer springs, and the whole setup rides on Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2R tires. So these are, you don't want to run these tires on the street. These are track tires. If you do run them on the street, be very careful. Don't drive in anything wet. It doesn't really, dissipate water all that well. But on the track, these tires are the tire to run. So this is the ZTK package as was the case on the C7 ZR1. This is the track package. Now, one other thing I should note about these tires is that they are TPC specs, so they're the specially developed compound. And this compound is actually different from the compound that the Z06 uses. The Z06 also offers the Cup 2Rs as part of the Z07 performance package. On the ZR1, they're actually a different TPC spec. But a little thing I've been hearing from my sources is that it's very possible. They still haven't made the decision yet, from what I know, but they're considering simply switching the Z06 to the ZR1's Cup 2R tires. So that's something that is probably in the works for, a subsequent model year. We'll see. Now, I should also note that Carbon Aero, featuring all aerodynamic equipment from the ZTK package, is also available on the standard ZR1 chassis. So if you don't want the aggressive suspension tuning and the Cup 2R, the track-specific Cup 2R tires, you get this option here. So, you basically have the downforce, which is the most downforce that a Corvette's ever made, with over 1,200 pound-feet at top speeds. That's what the ZTK pack delivers, and the Carbon Aero package without the ZTK package, that's what it also delivers. Chevy says from a performance standpoint that during testing and development, the ZR1 tackled some of the world's most demanding racetracks like the Nürburgring, Road Atlanta, and Virginia International Raceway. In fact, Taj had the following to say about it in the press release. He says, quote, "We went into the ZR1 program with lofty goals, but even our first development tests on track showed the team were already exceeding them. As we worked to develop this car, we continued to leap past expectations, and we knew we had a special Corvette on our hands," end quote. I think that's just, it sums it up really well.
He delivered on that statement.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it's funny because the statement, it's like a chicken and the egg, or the egg thing, right? Like, how is it that you're going to, what's going to happen if you take the LT6, which is already a very powerful engine, the most powerfully naturally aspirated V8 in the world. What if you take that and just put 2 turbos on it and then do a few other things? This is the result. I mean, is anyone surprised? Are you surprised that this is the result? I mean, the C8 Z06 is already sick, but this is sicker. It's sickest, right? I mean, it's just sick.
Because I remember conversations between you and I in the past about possible numbers, possible figures. Those sounded so insane when you said them. And this is well above that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's well above that. I mean, it's like 1,000. It's over 1,000 horsepower. Can you imagine what all of the M3, M4, M5 guys are, if you're Porsche right now, forget about those, the BMWs. They're not even in the same league, right? Look at the 911. It's game, set, match. It's game, set, match. We're going to get to the price in a bit because that's one of the big mysteries here. We're going to get to that. But if they price it the way that Chevy has been pricing Corvettes, not at an astronomical figure, but still, if you're you make decent money and maybe you sacrifice here and there, maybe you don't, whatever, but this is still attainable. It's going to be attainable-ish, right? It's not as attainable as a Stingray, but it's still, there. If you want your dream car, this can be your dream car and you can still buy it. You're not going to buy a $300,000 GT3 RS or a GT2 RS, right? You're just not going to do that. So yeah, this is just impressive from every angle. But all that impressive power and the aero performance that comes along with it will need to be tamed. And the way it needs to be tamed is with proper brakes. So the C8 ZR1 is getting one set of brakes. There's no optional brakes. There's no upmarket or, upgrade available. It's just one set. They're carbon ceramics with a new carbon ceramic rotor manufacturing technology, which delivers increased durability and reduced brake component temperatures, which is awesome. One thing about these carbon ceramic brakes that Taj pointed out to me is that they actually don't look like carbon ceramics. So you know how typically you have a carbon ceramic brake, it kind of looks like the moon's surface, kind of all strange looking, and that's how you know it's a carbon ceramic. I mean, either that or it's a very messed up and warped iron.
I want to have those checked out properly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A little concerned.
So in the case of the C8 ZR1, they still look a little bit different, but they look a lot more polished.
Okay. You're getting more of that smooth finish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So from a size standpoint, it's 15.7 inches or 400 millimeters in the front for the front rotors. And then the rear rotors are 15.4 inches or 390 millimeters in diameter. So this makes the front rotors the largest ever equipped on a Corvette from the factory. And just what does all that come to deliver? So first and foremost, this car can go from 80 to 200 miles per hour and then back down to 80 miles per hour in a matter of 24.5 seconds. That's 22% quicker than the C7 ZR1 and 53% quicker than the C6 ZR1. So, it's just sick. It's mind-boggling, these stats, right? They're just mind-boggling. So there is that. And then that's not it. And then there is a GM estimated top speed of over 215 miles an hour. Notice how it says over 215 miles per hour. Now, everyone I've spoken to who has worked on the C8 ZR1, when I asked them, well, exactly how much over? They don't give me an exact answer, but what they do give me is a smirk saying 215 easy. 215 easy?
Nice.
Are you kidding me? This isn't a supercar anymore, right? This is like hypercar territory. Okay, all right. Wrap your mind around that. Let's keep going. A few other performance specs that Chevy released. So on its first lap, oh, you know what? Before I get to that, the way that they tested this engine is they actually put it into an old C8 Stingray prototype. This is Taj telling me, some backstory here. He says, we put it into a C8 ZR1 prototype. I'm not going to play the audio because the recording has got other people talking and music and this and that, and you can barely hear anything. But the story goes like this. They put it into a C8 Stingray with the narrow, skinny tires. I say skinny, but they're, fatter than most tires out there. But compared to the every wide body C8, they're skinnier. And the E-Ray, the Z06, the ZR1, they all run 345s out back. So they put the twin turbo, a prototype engine of the LT7 into a Stingray, and is like, the tires didn't hold up.
Wow.
It just ran through tires like this.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not enough tire. That's not enough bite. That's not enough anything to hold on to that much power.
345 millimeters. My C7 Grand Sport, which is a wide body, same as the C8 or C7 Z06, C7 ZR1, at the rear, the tire dimensions are all the same. 335, I thought it was like the pinnacle, right? 345 is next level. Those are some fat boys, right? This is like you go into Subway, you don't get a foot long, right? You get like
foot and a half, baby.
No, it's a football field's worth of sandwich. It's like one of those world's biggest sandwiches type of thing. That's what it is.
This is like over the top in every single way you can dream of, imagine of.
What they say is this. On its first lap at the Milford Proving Grounds MRC test track, the new ZR1 clocked a faster peak speed than the production C7 ZR1, and engineers clocked a sub 10-second quarter mile on its first launch.
Wow.
Hold on a second. On its first launch, meaning they don't know, they haven't really optimized it yet, right? They haven't really optimized their control of it yet, the human factor, right? First launch, sub 10 seconds. Here's another bit. All four test drivers clocked over 200 mile per hour peak speed on their very first laps at the Nürburgring with ease. They added with ease. Just in case, you're Porsche and you're not shitting your pants yet. With ease. With ease. All right. Wow. All right. Let's take a moment a bit and take a little break from the performance, because we're about to fly into the stratosphere here.
Dude, my face literally hurts from smiling so much.
I know.
From the first 1,064 horsepower. I'm like, oh, wait. No, go back down. I'm supposed to be serious. This is fantastic.
I know. So inside, we'll take a little break from the performance and talk about what's inside. So inside, the C8 ZR1 is the same as all the other C8s introduced to date. So same instrument panel or digital gauge cluster, same center stack screen, which is now kind of getting a little bit small, in my opinion. It's starting to get a bit long in the tooth. It still have the great wall of buttons, as we like to call it, the HVAC divider between the driver and the passenger. Keep your hands off my Corvette. Sit in the passenger seat. Don't touch anything. So it still retains all that. Good. But it does deliver a few unique touches, including ZR1 badging on a plaque, on the steering wheel, and on the sill plates. There is also a new finishing stitch pattern that's specific to the ZR1, and it can be found on the doors, essentially on the rearmost part of the doors, and that is part of the 3LZ trim. So essentially, there will be two trim levels, 1LZ, 3LZ, which is a different trim level configuration than the Stingray, for example, but that's on the 3LZ. There's also a boost gauge that has been added to the digital gauge cluster, obviously denoting the very first factory turbocharged Corvette in the history of Corvette. And then there is a new colorway called Habanero. So it's spicy, right? Can you taste the spice?
I'm just seeing the color options that they're like, how do you get to that point where you're like, all right, everything I'm gonna touch is gonna be awesome?
Yeah,
because this is like I'm looking at every little thing that they have addressed, looked at, thought about.
Oh, you're thinking of the blue stitch option too, right? Because now there is a blue stitch, so there's a blue stitch option, so you can get Habanero with the blue stitch option, to complement the the Blue Devil stuff, and that whole theme. You can take that, and then there is a blue color available for the seat belts, which is exclusive to the C8 ZR1. So you can blue this thing out of proportion if you want. As if it wasn't blown out of proportion already. You could blue it out of proportion. You see that?
Pretty creative.
It's good, right?
So you're talking about blue calipers, blue stitching, blue paint, blue. I feel good.
You get blue wheels.
And the blue wheels, man.
I'm blue, da-boo-dee-da.
That's what I'm saying. I've been singing that the whole day.
Blue his house and a blue little window and a blue Corvette.
That's the whole jam.
Oh my God. We see, we got
small world.
Very small
world. We listened to songs earlier, and then they make it happen. This is good stuff.
I'm proud. All right, so
now how much is it going to cost?
Well, that's the thing.
Come on, man.
That's the thing. All right, nobody knows. What I can tell you is that it will enter production in 2025. It will obviously be built at the Bowling Green Assembly Plant in Kentucky. The LT7 will be built at the PDC, the Performance Build Center in Kentucky as well, at the same plant, obviously, alongside Stingray, Z06, E-Ray. And yes, Chevy didn't announce pricing. They didn't announce exact availability details. But I guess we can discuss pricing. We can speculate, right? So, okay, the C8 Z06 starts at around $110,000. I personally don't expect the ZR1 to be priced anywhere below the $150,000 mark starting. That's for the 1LZ. If you want the 3LZ, probably 170. That would be my guess. I don't think it would be 150 actually. I just don't think it will be less than 150.
It makes sense to have this level of. It's not even a performance vehicle at this point. This is a supercar that... It's
not even a supercar. I think they've entered hypercar territory with this. This is like a Pagani, or Koenigsegg, something in that realm. But it's a Chevy. It's a Chevy.
I'm thinking 175.
Maybe. Yeah.
That price point.
I would agree with you. I don't think it would be less than 150. I wouldn't discount it being less... Or I wouldn't not disagree with you if it were 170, 175.
It would fit an interesting niche because it's right below the point where you start to dump out a ton of money. So you're grabbing that customer, and you're not only grabbing them, you're pleasing them deeply.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Blue, please.
They're all about pleasing the customer. So, I mean,
this-
just look at the specs, right? But then let's just look at for shits and giggles, right? Let's look at the the Porsche, right? So the 911, right? It's got all kinds of models. There's like, they start at 120,000 roughly, and they go all the way up to, 200, 300, depending on really which one you're getting, right? So out of the mainstream models, you have the 911 Carrera, okay, the 120 grand. You have the GTS, that's 165 grand. And then you have the all-wheel drive GTS, which is 172 grand. From there, you have the hardcore track performance models, right? The GT2 RS in the past, the GT3 RS. In fact, Chevy benchmarked the GT2 RS against the C8 ZR1 when they were developing it. We have photos of it. And they also, I think, used an SF90 Stradale, the Ferrari. So I asked, how did Taj, how did it compare? And he said in his typical gentlemanly way, he's such a gentleman. He goes, well, I'd never talk bad about the competition, but let's just say we performed very favorably. Right? So you look at something like the GT3 RS, you're not buying one for, a new one for less than 400 grand, 500 grand, give or take. So, if they price it at 170 grand, which I think you're right, I think that would be the sweet spot of where this would be priced. Because really, let's be honest, I mean, beyond the engine and the transmission, both of which have been upgraded significantly over what's in the Z06. But other than that, there's really not much going on here. You got the carbon fiber roof. Okay, maybe that's another, cost center there. But beyond that, what else is there? There's not that much, right? From actual components. I mean, stitching doesn't cost anything. Logos on the steering wheel and the sill plates and wherever else, that doesn't cost anything. You got the split rear window. That costs something. You've got, new ducting on the side. That might cost something. But outside of that, the big spenders here, the big cost centers are the engine, the transmission, the carbon fiber components. That's about it. So I'm right there with you. I think 170 grand, it would be very, very well received.
I just look at it as a phenomenal price point from the mindset of who's in the market for this. Mm-hmm. It's normally guys that can afford the $250,000, $300,000 car.
Or higher.
The value factor in terms of what am I receiving performance-wise out of this 170, 175, 180. If you want to spec it out a little bit, 190, go a little crazy. Do you think they're going to go north of 200?
I don't. Maybe if you get the ZDK package and you get the carbon fiber wheels, at that point you're going to probably hit 200 and above. If given our price tag of 170 starting holds true, we don't even know, right?
It makes sense to a point, just from speculation.
I'd say between 150 and 200. That would be my guess. Okay. And a sweet spot between those two is
very fair.
175.
Very fair.
Yeah. But let's keep in mind a couple of things. One, there will be another model above the ZR1 in the C8 lineup. That will, of course, be the Zora. Again, something that GMAuthority.com reported on 4 years ago. So the Zora will be the ZR1, everything that you see about the ZR1, but with a hybrid electric setup on the front axle. So now with the Zora, you will have the ZR1's performance, the ZR1's everything about the ZR1, plus all-wheel drive, plus a hybrid electric instant torque type of a setup. Now, are you getting the picture? That will be the final word in performance. That's what they're going after, is the final word. And they're showing the whole world. They're showing the Germans how it's done. They're showing the Italians how it's done. They're showing, the Swedes with Koenigsegg, how it's done. They're showing everyone how it's done. And that a fast mid-engine car does not have to be a prohibitive thing. It does not have to be that. It can be well within the limits of, I mean, I don't know if I would call 200,000 affordable. Obviously, it's not, but it's way more affordable than anything else that's capable of the same levels of performance. That's the point. The downside of that is you're going to have to still service it at a Chevy dealership, which I don't,
Looking at the direction that they're going in, I believe that they should be, or most people, but you seeing improvements at that dealership level from here on out. Maybe not right away, but the direction is...
From your mouth to Mark Royce's ears.
Please listen.
Please. Because, well, here's why. There's one thing if they're servicing a $20,000, $25,000 Chevy Trax, right? They're doing an oil change on that, whatever kind of service. A person who's buying even like the Z06s now, the C8s, right? This is a much higher priced, much more valuable thing. And unfortunately, the service experience it's lacking. It's lacking for that level of product. You compare that to what a Porsche customer would get, right? It's a whole different ballgame. And I don't want to get into this now because it's like a whole different podcast and a whole different episode that we can have. But at the end of the day, that's kind of that's the trade-off, right? That's the trade-off. You're going to get a high performance machine, but maybe the service experience isn't the same as you would get at Porsche. I don't know, maybe Aston Martin, same thing, who knows? But at the end of the day, that's kind of the trade-off.
I mean, hopefully they come up with some new level of certification so you can strive to be.
They've tried it, but it's you kind of start getting into the weeds of the service advisor is the same guy who's doing and they don't really care. They're all getting paid the same amount. It doesn't matter if it's a $25,000 Trax or if it's a $200,000 C8. They're all getting paid the same amount of money, and to them it's just another survey. They're all going to get the same survey. All the customers are getting the same survey. I don't want to get into this. I'm already getting into it, so I'll stop. At the end of the day, what a machine!
Beautiful.
What a machine!
End to end.
I mean, I can't wait to drive it. I can't wait to drive it. And again, this is the ZR1. Can you imagine Zora?
That's going to be the pinnacle. That's just, I think this is, Chevy is setting itself up to just walk away with all the trophies all at once. It's just this like solid move. They have everything set up. We spoke about this before, and I had asked you, I'm like, why do you think that they're going into this mid-engine competing against European models? This is not them. And you're like, this is a whole project. Yep. They're laying out multi-layers to this. It's coming to fruition, and it's looking amazing. So, fantastic. Well, thank you all for joining us on the second episode of the Chevy Society podcast. You can find this show on the MOTROLIX Network YouTube channel and ChevySociety.com. Please remember to hit that like button and give us a follow to stay up to date on the latest Chevy news. We're currently working on getting this show into your favorite podcatchers. So if you don't see it in a podcatcher app yet, just give us a few days and we'll get that taken care of. Stay tuned next week for episode 3 of the Chevy Society podcast, where we'll discuss the refreshed 2025 Tahoe and Suburban. Don't forget to visit gmauthority.com for the latest GM news.
MOTROLIX.